So here's a quick documentary about the restoration of Jason Becker's White Hurricane guitar that was featured on the cover of the Speed Metal Symphony album. So this is Richard Cruz speaking, and when Albert Comas came to me about the idea of restoring Jason's guitar, I jumped at the chance. Albert and I had worked together for many years, almost 20 years, at Carvin before it became Kiesel Guitars. And so it was Albert and I that had worked closely with Jason on the original Signature Series guitars at Carvin. So Albert had the Hurricane guitar, but it didn't have the original neck, and the original neck was still in existence, but it didn't have the Hurricane logo on it. At some point in time, Jason had scraped off the Hurricane logo. From what I understand, even the pickups were not the original pickups in the guitar. And we set out to restore the neck. So he sanded it, made it nice and smooth, removed all the scrapes and scratches off of it. But it needed the Hurricane logo, and we searched high and low on the internet to try and find a good close-up picture of that exact guitar. And we just couldn't find one. So I reached out to Dave Lopez, Jason's best friend, to see if there's anything that I could get from him. And so what Dave told me was that there's a guy who has the exact guitar that Jason had. It's the only other guitar in existence that looks just like Jason's. So I contacted him. And I got to say a big thanks to Craig Rundels, because if it wasn't for Craig's guitar and having collected and being such a big fan of Jason, we would not have been able to properly restore Jason's Hurricane guitar. So Craig sent me some close-up pictures of his guitar, and the close-up pictures enabled me to put that headstock photo into Photoshop and basically trace and recreate the original Hurricane logo. And with Albert's help, using digital calipers and measuring hardware to match the scale of what that logo should be, we were able to create an exact replica of the Hurricane logo. And basically what we did when it was done was we printed it on a water slide decal, and then we had a trial and error of positioning that decal onto the headstock. Now, for those of you who've worked with water slide decals, one of the challenges is you got to get it down in the right position before it starts to set, and you can slide it around a little bit, but you've got to really get precise with it. And one of the things that we failed to do was to seal the ink into the decal before we dropped it into water, so we had to go through a few trial and errors. The other thing that we needed to do was we needed to spray lacquer onto the headstock itself, because again, Albert sanded it smooth, so it was raw wood. So we needed to do a layer of lacquer to make it sealed so that water would not penetrate into the wood. Eventually, when we did get the decal on and it dried, we actually put a hair dryer onto it to help the drying process get the water dried from underneath and all around. We then coated it with well over a dozen coats of nitrocellulose lacquer. And the lacquer helped blend the edges of the decal so that they kind of melted into the many coats of lacquer that we ended up spraying on there. So that is basically how we were able to recreate the logo and restore the guitar. Albert did all the rest of the work, where he put in the original pickups, bolted the neck on, cleaned the frets, dressed the frets, and got everything playable on the guitar again, so that it can now be enjoyed by all those who visit Jason and want to play his Hurricane guitar.